At what point in your career did you start integrating with the K-9s?
So in 19, let's say 90, probably 97, 98, I wrote a paper. So, we were doing, the legacy mission, we were doing, it's a big, ships are huge and they have,
Oh, yeah.
God knows how many staterooms. And I was like, there's got to be an asset that can help us in this environment. Dogs, So I didn't know. I mean, I grew up reading about dogs. I grew up reading, Old Yeller, Where the Red Fern Grows, Call of the Wild, all that stuff. I was a big dog kid. I always had dogs. And then I just thought, well, hey, if the cops are using them for stuff, we can probably use them. I just didn't know anything about the technical abilities of a dog. So I called a kennel, and I want to say they were in New Hampshire or maybe upstate New York. I said, hey, I'm just curious. Do you think a dog can help in this, type? And of course, they're selling dogs. They're like, yeah, for sure, 100%. Anyway, so I sat down, I did a little research, wrote a point paper, and sent it up, and they kept it. Turns out I didn't think anybody read it, but when I came back, they were like, hey, we need a shooter in the dog crew, and I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm on it. So that's how I really got involved. And Ike had kind of set the program up. Ike was a squared away dude, and he had it pretty well laid out. Of course, he was restricted by the things that the military would let him do, but yeah, it was the way it started. I think it was a really good deal.
What role, if you could explain to people, what role does the dog fill? I mean, in going as broad terms as you want to, because I don't want to give away any TTPs, but as a handler, what kind of role were you looking to fill?
So essentially, I was looking to put the dog where the dog, who I consider to be a force multiplier. My job was really to put the dog where it could help the shooters the best. And as a shooter, that was super helpful. So it's interesting when I work with law enforcement folks now, there's a big separation oftentimes between the SWAT guys and the regular K-9 guys, and they don't get along, and there's egos involved. And man, they're really denying themselves a serious asset for the really hard stuff that they have to do. They just don't know what they don't know. At any rate, I think being a shooter really helped, simply because I understood how the process went.
Oh, yeah.
And where to be and what was going to happen next and all of those things. But so the dog can find bombs, the dog can find people, which was really the most important. And it kind of seemed to go in stages through the targets, right? Like get out of the helicopter, start, find bombs, find bomb, find, okay, we're at the spot. Boom. Dog sees the guys getting ready. He knows the deal. Breach, or we just get inside and do what we got to do. And then look for bombs. So the difficulty really was after we'd gotten in a fight where the dog bit somebody, found somebody hiding.
Yeah.
Or somebody ran at us or whatever. And then trying to get the dog to go look for bombs after that was a little bit tough. It's like, you and I getting,
yeah, guys switch
beating the
gears.
shit out of each other. And then like, all right, let's go pick up the fucking trash. Yeah. Yeah.
What kind of additional training do handlers go through if they're going to go down that pipeline?
I think, there's two types of handlers really. There's the shooters, and then there's the standard military folks that are dog, they're generally law enforcement like MP, or in the Navy we call them master arms. They have to actually learn how to kind of go out with us and not be too much of a pain, right? Yeah. And some of them are actually really, really good. And we're taken on missions even without their dogs sometimes because we needed the people. But for the shooters, I think we don't have to worry about, learning how to integrate into the squadron. We just have to learn how to use that dog the best way we can. And I really struggled. Spike, my first dog, was what is called a push button dog. He was a titled dog. So there was a lot of discussion about, where we could get these dogs, and the Army guys had done it ahead of us. And they realized that the regular military couldn't provide the kind of dogs that we needed, because the type of stuff we were going to do, involved, environmentals that regular military dogs don't.
Just call it non-traditional.
There you go. Yeah. So they were starting to go overseas to buy the dogs. They had to go overseas to buy the dogs. And in Holland, there's a police, that's a sport really, but it's a police qualification. The Dutch police, K-9, I don't know. Gosh, I wish I knew all of it. But the initials are KN as in November, P as in Papa, V as in Victor, KMPV. And at the end of it, if the dog's successful, they get a score. And Spike had a super high score, which means that he was really well trained. So he had all the skills that we needed. We just had to actually take one of the things that he had learned out of it for our environment. You know, he was trained in a police type setting, so we didn't want him to run up to a suspect with their hands up and just stand there and bark. You know, that's dangerous. So we had to train that out of them, and we had to actually. Some of them really struggled with the environmental stuff, like slick floors or dark and stairs, things like that. So for me, the shooter, it was getting me and the dog working together to figure out how to read each other, and then figure out how to put the dog in the best spot I could so that he'd be most effective. So, you know, if there's somebody running out of the building, am I ready to go? Am I close to the front, but still able to, you know, all those little decisions that where to put the dog into play. And it's actually a little bit more nuanced than you would think. And it depends on the personality of the dog, right? So like for me, I wasn't great at teaching Spike to be quiet. I want him to be fired up when he saw dudes stacking at the door. Yeah. And he'd like, rah, rah. So you don't want that. So, and then I'd have to take him and hide him behind a tree so he couldn't see him stacked up and be like, hey, what's up, buddy? You know, that kind of stuff. It was really fun. It was also, it was really interesting to see how, or try to, I think some of combat, I think you can probably find this in sport, and this would be a good thing to discuss with you later. But I think there's this natural animal instinct that we have as humans, and I think combat is the best place to see it, right? And I think it's interesting that the dogs are there; they're not trying to hide it. We spend a fair amount of our lives hiding that part of us and denying that it exists. But once you're in it together, man, that's I don't know how to explain that connection, but it's like, you're like, okay. I mean, I'm still going to have to clean up your poo later, but we're good, you know?
Yeah.